Good morning. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Please share my channel. Please comment whether you agree with me or not. I really love having you here. I appreciate you. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for participating. So you're going to get to see a train. If you look in my back window when I come through here, there's a bridge above me and there's a train going across it there. And if you look, you'll see the train. I'm not going to look because there's traffic here. I'm driving. But I'll watch the video later. I'll see if it showed up. But anyway, today I wanted to talk about something that, a subject that has arisen a few times. Not recently, but kind of every now and then it just comes up. And I feel that it's worth talking about. It's about grouping people all together and calling an entire group wrong. I noticed that, we all have our different perceptions of life, our experience and what we see and what we believe to be true, what's right for us. Our experience is unique to each of us. And I've talked before about how we see through the eyes, the window of our own perception, and that's based on our own experience. And so each and every one of us has an outlook. We have an outlook on life. We have an outlook on, on other people. We have an outlook on what's going on in the world. We have views and opinions. We have a political view. We have a social view about how, society should be run. We have moral views. And all of those things they're not the same for all of us. Each of us comes from a different place, a different culture, different experiences. We all experience different things, which is what brings us to the conclusions that we come to. And one thing that I have to say really bothers me is when one person has a particular view of the world or of life or of morality or whatever it is that they have a view of, and they see somebody else who has a different view, and they basically try to say, you're wrong, and not only are you wrong, but you're evil, you're bad, because you have this view, and it doesn't align with my view, that makes you evil. So people tend to demonize other people based on simply not agreeing with them. And what's happening there is, and a lot of times they'll come up with all this proof. Here's proof that I'm right. Here's proof that you're wrong. And what they're really saying is, I'm going to show you what I believe in. I'm going to try to dig it in so hard that you're going to feel so horrible about yourself for being you. And I'm going to try to mold you and shape you into what I think you should be and what I think you should feel, what I think you should believe. And if you don't do it, I'm going to shame you. I'm going to, out you. I'm going to tell everybody that you're evil and that you don't deserve rights. Or I'm going to, all these things that they're like threats. People threaten other people's basic right to live. Sometimes. Not everybody does it, but there are people who do it. Just because somebody doesn't agree with them. And, it's one thing to have an opinion. It's one thing to have a point of view. It's one thing to have a particular, candidate or political party or economic views, social views, like I said, moral views. It's one thing to have them. And debate and discussion, when people discuss things, discussion should be there for one reason and one reason only, to understand each other. There are debates where people are trying to persuade somebody to see it a certain way. And there is such a thing as healthy debate, where each person presents their view. Each person respects the other person's view. They listen to the other person's view. And the idea is that each of those people will try to open the other person's eyes to that other view. Whether that means swaying them to, adopt that view, in a debate. That's the name of the game, is to try to sway. But in a discussion, discussions don't always have to sway somebody. Discussions should be to gain understanding. I mean, we're not all on the debate stage. We don't all have to debate everything. I think there's so many people that think that they have to force, and it's not healthy debate. They use, like I said, threats. And when I say threats, I don't mean they come right out and say, I'm going to harm you. I just, but calling somebody the devil or from the devil or a demon or, demonic or evil tends to, put a label on that person, and then society is looking at them like, oh, they're bad. And then they have this stigma that they have to live with. And it's not a good or healthy thing to put that stigma on somebody so that all of society will look at them like that. Oh, look at that person. They're evil because they believe this. And then other people kind of pile on like a wolf pack. And then there could be harm done. And that happens sometimes, Sometimes people get so riled up about, thinking somebody's evil that harm does come to them. So, I mean, there is healthy debate, but we're not all here to debate each other. We're here to understand each other. We're here to respect and love one another. And if we're going to respect everybody's differences, then we need to be careful of what kind of discussions we're having. If our discussions are only there to persuade, we're going to get frustrated and angry, and that's not healthy. If our discussions are there to understand, to try to understand the other person's point of view, that's when it's a healthy discussion. Traffic is extra today, sorry. There's not a lot of traffic, there just seem to be clumps. And people who are not being kind within those clumps. It's strange the way traffic was. Now there's nobody. There's one person in front of me in the wide open highway. But back there, it's like everybody was fighting for the same space. So anyway, that's really what I wanted to share today, is just that we all come from the same source, but we're all living our own individual experiences, and there's a reason for that. This whole life experience is here to grow us. It's here to support us and grow us. And when I say grow us, not necessarily grow us in intellect and in book smarts, but it's to grow us from the heart. It's to grow us to really, I guess the word that the Eastern philosophers use is enlighten. It's to enlighten us to the fact that we are all one, and we need to love despite everything that's going on around us. Love is the key. Love is the ultimate goal. Knowing that we're one and loving one another. So when we have differences, that's kind of I don't like to call it a test, but that's an opportunity. When you run into somebody with differences and they're you're very different, they're on one entirely far side of this aisle and you're on the other far side of that aisle, and you start talking to them, watch the way the conversation unfolds. Observe it. See if either of you are starting to jump to conclusions, call each other names, accuse each other. Like if you vote for this person, that makes you a this, and you must be a that, and you must think that, and then they start leaping to, they've gone from this to who you voted for, and maybe it could be for a whole array of reasons, but they've jumped the lily pads all the way down the river, all the way to conclusion Z. They've gone from A to Z in one sentence. And the next thing you know, the conclusion that they've drawn is that because this is your general vote for one candidate or one person, they've gone all the way to that makes you a this. And that's where it gets dangerous. That's where it gets insulting and disrespectful. We need to be careful in our conversations that when we're talking to people, and if I'm ever the one who's doing it and saying, oh, because you think this, that means, and then going all the way to, all the way to the other side of the continent with what I think of this person as basically defining their character. If I catch myself doing that, I'm gonna ask for that to be corrected. I will want support from the Holy Spirit to correct that in me. And it's really good in conversations when you are disagreeing with somebody to just kind of take a step back and observe the conversation. How is it unfolding? It can start out, okay, tell me what you think about this, and then I'll tell you what I think about this. Teach me the reason that you believe this. Where did you get that? Where did you come to that conclusion? Why is it that you think that you have that particular view? I mean, having conversations with people who are different from you brings a wealth of wisdom and understanding. I like to look at talking to people with differences who are willing to talk to me civilly as an eye-opening experience that's really good for me, because I get to see other people's views. I don't have to persuade them to take on my view. I can just observe and listen to them and see what their views are. And I find that very interesting. I think it's interesting that people have different views. And sometimes when people get really angry at somebody's view, it's because they perceive it as something that is directly harming them. Well, you have this view, and that is because you have this view, that's harming me in this way. But I think that this world, this life experience, doesn't need to be looked at as if something can harm us just because of what's going on around here. Nothing can harm us. Nothing can touch us unless we believe it can. And that's another thing to work on in the inside of us. If I think that something out there that somebody does is so harmful to me that I have to be nasty to other people, there's something going on inside me that's causing me to believe that. That's a fear. And I would have to say that in me, that would be an irrational fear, to think that someone can harm me. It's called giving away your power. We have unlimited power and strength in the Holy Spirit who lives through us. He's told us that numerous times. In the Bible, it says that. In all of the different philosophies and Eastern religions, it says that we have access to the unlimited. We are the unlimited. We're the ones who come up with what we want. And I'm not saying that everything goes our way, but it's all an opportunity for us to grow. And if we look at things in fear, like they're going to get us and hurt us, like it's we're in a forest and there are wild animals trying to eat us. If we look at the world that way, we're going to create a world that involves fear, and we're going to see more of those things. But if we look at the world like I'm going into the forest, and yes, they're animals, but they're all animals, and que sera, sera, whatever happens, and I'm just going to walk through and enjoy and be grateful for the sunshine and the trees and the forest. I've seen animals up close. I've seen bear up close. I've been up close with, deer, skunk, raccoons. I mean, I've seen a lot of different animals, bobcat, and they've, come pretty close to me. And I think that was when I was younger, when I was much younger. I would say, between 8 and 12 years old, I used to go up in the forest and they would just be there. I didn't even really realize yet, what damage they could do to a human being. I didn't go up there thinking, oh, there's a bear, he's got claws, he can get me. I didn't think that. I just went up there and I was looking around, and if I saw an animal, I thought I would just sit there really quiet and just be like, observe, and be like, wow. I was just so happy that I got to see these animals in the forest. I wasn't afraid of them. And I don't think that we should be afraid of each other and what we can do to each other, because really it's the fear that creates more fear in our lives, more things that support the fear. And if we eliminate the fear of somebody else's perspective harming us, then we can just sit back and observe and look at all people for who they are and just get a good understanding of people's differences without assigning it somehow to us, without taking it personally. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. It's time to get into the office. That's all I've got. I hope you're all having a great day. I will see you next time.